All right, welcome to part 4 of our Pun 2 multiplayer card game using Playmaker. Just to review what we've done, because I've already forgot since recording yesterday. I'm going to hit play. We should be instantiating a scene object, which is our deck, and then we should be instantiating a player. Let's see what happens here. Boom. So we have our player, which if we look over here, is mine is true because this is the local player. The owner is actor 1. That's what those 1s stand for. And the deck's photon view also says is mine, but you can see the creator is 0. And that's because this one is it's not instantiated like the players are, where the player owns it. Instead, it's instantiated as a scene object. So all the players should be able to interact with it. Okay, so we still need to shuffle our deck. So if we look at our player, there's our card player. We have this hand panel. All right, with all these card slots. So what we need now is we need to basically, the same way that we have an array for, which I hate that I'm using arrays instead of lists. We're going to do, I guess I could use lists whenever I deal them out. Which I might just keep it arrays. We need a way to house what the player has. So I'm going to try to keep all the player's logic on its root. So I'm going to add an FSM, and I don't know if this is going to have any logic on it, but what it is going to have is it's going to have, let me see, show of hands. Who wants to use array? Who wants to use a list? Dang, I just got myself to deal with here. So let's do an array, and hopefully we don't change our mind later. All right, so we're going to call this, cards in hand. And this is going to be script. This is going to be object, an object type, scriptable. So the reason that I had to veer from using a list is because we wanted it to be pre-populated ahead of time. And with Playmaker Array List Proxy, it won't let you use objects. I can have a list and add scriptable objects to it at runtime, but I can't do it before runtime. So when we deal a card, what we're going to do is think about which player we're dealing the card to, and then we're going to get that scriptable object, and we're going to store it in the player's array, but we're going to remove it from the deck array. And what I'm going to hate about that is the fact that resizing it's going to be a butt. But, so now that I know that it's on this player, and it's in the FSM, we're just going to call this the cardsInhand FSM too. All right, let's come back over here. Oh shoot, that's right. Our deck is now an instantiated prefab. So we have deck, we have array shuffle, where we set the text message to deal. Okay, so what we're looking at now is we're looking at this button here. The shuffle button is going to get changed to the deal button. So let's copy this on click event and let's paste it here. Except now I'm going to say this is us dealing. All right, control, click and drag out. So what's the dealing state gonna look like? It's 8 in the morning, by the way. We need to get from our array, I want to get the last one. And why do I want to get the last item in the array, do you think? It has to do with resizing it. So rather than actually take from the top of the array, from the top of the deck, we're actually going to get from the bottom of the deck, which to the players, they don't need to know. We're just going to make our bottom the top. We could probably because we can clear and then we can resize. Well, there is array delete at, so it deletes the item at an index. Index must be between 0 and the number of items. First item is index 0. Let's try this. I don't think I've ever used this action for anything. If I have, I can't remember using it. So let's just, we're just going to delete the first index, which is 0. So right now, the ace of clubs is the first one in the array, but it won't be because we're going to shuffle. So all we're going to do is we're just going to see what happens if we do this. Because a lot of times with game development, that's what it is. You're like, you can spend 30 minutes to an hour researching online, asking people, hey, how do I do this thing? Will this work? Most of the time it's just faster to just do it and see if it works. And then if it doesn't, you know, try something else or, you know, reach out to some community for help. Okay, so there's our deck right there. And if we come to our variables, there's our deck of cards. We haven't shuffled yet, so let's shuffle. Boink. Now, the hearts, the 10 of hearts, is the first card in the deck. So if I click deal, all we're doing is we should just see that this should say hearts 9 now, because the idea is we want to delete the top. If it doesn't delete that top element, then we're going to do it differently. Boink. All right, sweet, that works. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So now that we know that works, that takes a weight off my shoulders for not being able to use array lists. We are going to now come over here, and we're not really going to be deleting that. Whatever, we'll just keep its name like that. Oh, now it's angry at me. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we want to first, I'm typing without being in the array actions. Array get, well, I gotta move my mic. Might be some annoying noises. There we go, it's a little bit too close to my laptop. So we're gonna array get, and we want to get at index 0 of our deck of cards. And we're going to store this as top card. Okay, so we're going to get the top card. Ooh, so here's something. How many do we want to deal? So we're dealing now. One thing that we can do, get out of there, is let's create an int that represents the amount of cards we want to deal. So we'll call this deal count. And another thing we can do is we can make it an input variable. And I know I got a lot going on over here in the inspector, but if we go blinky, 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 come on, blinky. There you go. There you go. All right, so we can see our deal count here. So what's nice is as long as we have the deck selected, no matter what FSM we're working on, what state we're in, we can just right here on the right, change our deal count. I want to deal 7. Dang, numlock. Why do you always turn off? 7. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to set our deal count to 7. As you can see, it now says 7 over here as well. It's not being used yet in our states. So that's our goal. Okay, so we are going to... we also need to know how many players are in this game. So it's I'm just going to pretend that no more than 4. But you're going to want to change up logic a little bit, but just for the sake of this, for this tutorial, to move it right along, is I am going to players, there we go, pun get players in room. All right, so this is going to be the first thing that we do. And I hate having another state, but because I'm using a pun action, I want to make sure I'm getting that number right and the other stuff doesn't rush itself. So we're going to do this. And I'm going to do this as player count. All right, and then we're going to come up here to dealing, and we're just going to make this action just that guy. Okay. So now we know how many people that we're dealing to. All right. So now we're dealing. Okay. And so we are going to, if you remember in the last part, we got, we stored, oh shit, let's go over into our player. We got the player number. What did we do with it? Assigned player number. So get this player's count. So we assigned it as a custom property. And so we named it. We also named the player. So this is actually running, this FSM here is running for all the players, that are entering. So that's one thing that it takes a little bit for some folks to wrap their heads around is my player on my machine, unless we did what we did in get player number, the photon view get is mine. If I don't have this first, when my player enters the game on everybody else's game engine on their game, my player enters with all of its logic. So all the logic that's on my player is going to run on my player, but on all those other people's machines. So really what we want to do here is we want to have an array that stores who all the players are. But we also store them as a, didn't we? So we're getting the player count. Now we're getting the player's custom property. We're making sure that it's not null. And then we are setting this. Is this a global? Yeah, this is we're setting player 1 because I'm only anticipating 4 players. We're setting player 1. All right, so I'm not going to worry about a bunch of crazy logic on this. I'm just going to pretend this card game, it'll always be 4 people. That's what I'm going to do. So you'll have to do some different logic, but let's move this tutorial along. So we have to do different logic if the number of players playing could potentially vary. So we're going to go back to the deck, and we are going to go to dealing. I'm not going to mess with this, but right now, anybody can click the deal button, okay? Anybody could click the deal button. And the problem with that is I can click the deal button and it will deal, but somebody else can click the deal button and continue to deal. So we'll have to keep that in mind. But when we're dealing, we want to array get the top card, and then we are going to player. We have the scriptable object, which is the card, and then we need to set it in the other player's array. So, oh geez. And the easiest way to do this is probably going to be by sending an event, because you can't, like, if we go into arrays, unlike just setting a bool or an int, that's easy, but you can't really array set, right? There's no like FSM array set. We can do array transfer value. But that's not gonna really work well. I think setting an event's the way to go. So we are going to, that's not going to work well either. Let's see if I can make this a little bit more visual. So I'm just going to make a kind of a fake FSM here to show what we're trying to do. All right, so we have our deck that gets scene instantiated. So we have a scene object holding deck. Okay, so we have our scene object that's holding the deck, but then we have a player with a hand. Okay, and we have potentially 4 of those. So there's player 2, there's player 3, and then there's player 4. So what we need to do is we need to get, when we're dealing, we need to deal, from this deck to the player's hands. But how do we do that? Because we have to be really careful to make sure that we know the scene object is the same for everybody. And if we tell the scene object to do something, we need to make sure that it's syncing with all the other players. So let's do some experimentation on that. We might actually have to do a build to fully experiment on that. All right. So, this FSM I'm done with. So when we hit the shuffle button, okay? So this is this Deck FSM. When we hit the shuffle button, we're going to get how many players are in the room, and then we're going to deal to all the players. So let's get an array. And I'm not even going to be worried about this players in room because in my scenario, it's going to be 4 players no matter what. So let's bring this into a new state here. And I want to get from each player, I want to get the cards in hand array that's in the cards in hand FSM. Okay? So let's get each player's cards in hand. All right, so let's get the cards in hand for each player. All right, so we are going to go back to our deck, and we need to get we want to store the FSM. We talked about this before already, that we can't just get, we're going to send an event to the player. That's right. We're going to send an event to the player. How are we going to tell them what to put in their array? Let's try transfer value and see if it works. So we shuffle all that jazz. We're going to deal. And let's do transfer value. So the source is going to be the deck of cards. The target is going to be, we can't set it as a global because it needs to stay with the player. So we need to store. Can we store an array from someone else's player into a variable? I doubt it. But we can try. So what if I do, let's create an object variable. And this is going to be player 1. This is not going to work. Player 1 hand array. Okay. And what is the object type? It's going to be a Playmaker FSM array. Is that a thingy? Let's see. We can do Playmaker FSM. Playmaker arrayless proxy. Let's see, Huton Games, Playmaker. None of those. Is there more in here? Maybe it's a Unity Engine Playmaker. I bet y'all are wishing that I planned this out ahead of time by now, don't you? No. Could it be Unity? No. So I don't think we can save a Playmaker FSM. The array, I mean. See, I thought I was losing my mind, but I finally found what I was looking for. It's get FSM array. It exists. I don't know. I was losing my mind. So sorry about that. So we're going to use this. All right. So we want to get an FSM array. So where do we want to get this from? Let's specify the object. We want to get it from player 1. And the FSM name is, I already forget what it is. Project, card player. It should just be Cards in hand, cards in hand. Oh, I didn't alphabetize that? That's going to be annoying. What did I name the variable? Yeah, let's make these the same. It'll be easier. Cards in hand. I didn't alphabetize that. That's not what I meant. Capitalized. All right. So back to the deck. Playmaker. State. So the FSM name is cards in hand. The variable name is cards in hand. So copy values, what does that do? So if true, it makes copies. If false, the values share the same reference. And editing one array item value will affect the source and vice versa. Warning, this will only affect the current items of the source array. Adding or removing items doesn't affect other FSM arrays. So let's see if this works. So yes, we want to, I don't want to copy the values because I want this reference to match. So we're going to store this as we need a new array. We're going to do this array, and this is going to be cards in hand. No, we want this to be cards in hand player 1. And the array type is object. Object type is card scriptable object. So we're going to store it now. Cards in hand player 1. So we're getting that array. We are storing it at cards in hand player 1. And then let's do... did we already do this in the next state? We're dealing. So we're going to array get this first one top card. And then we're going to delete it. We're going to say get FSM array. No, we're going to say get cards in hand array. Get cards in hand player 1. All right, and this is just to see if this even works. And then what we're going to do is we're going to array add. We want to add to cards in hand player 1 the top card. Who thinks this is going to work? Show of hands. Let's figure this out. All right, let's hit play. So what we're doing is we're connecting to our room or whatever, creating a room, joining the room, instantiating the player, and we're instantiating this deck. So now first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle my deck. The deck is now shuffled. If I go look at the deck, if I go to variables, if I go to deck of cards, you can see they're all shuffled. Now I'm going to deal. So all this is doing right now is it should be taking this top card, the 7 of hearts, and hopefully giving it to player 1. So I'm going to click deal. And you didn't do jack. I might need to click again. Deal. What's your problem? There it goes. I wonder why it was upset. Okay, well, it clicked. Okay, so what it did is it got... It might have worked. It might have worked. So let's go to player 1. And let's go to cards in hand. Let's go to the variables. Let's go to cards in hand. Bwomp, bwomp, bwomp. No, it didn't work. So we then need to, oh no. This is so complicated. We need to go to deck. And when we deal, okay, so we got the array. We're adding to our local one. But now we need to send it back because even though it says copy values, if true, it makes copies. If false, values share the same reference and editing one array item will affect the source and vice versa. Warning, this will only affect the current items of the source array. Adding or removing items doesn't affect other FSM arrays. So we added an item. And so that's why that didn't work. So now that we have it, all right, so what are our options here to actually send the value back to the other one? So if we come down here to state machine, we can set FSM array. So we can copy an array variable in another FSM, we can set an FSM array item. This sets an item in an array variable in another FSM. So, let's see if this works. So we're going to array add, and the game object that we're going to do. So we don't really even need. We don't need then to get the FSM array. We could just delete. Oops, I'm using the wrong keyboard. All right, we should then be able to delete that now. Come back to the array shuffle. Once we hit the shuffle button or the dealing button, we're going to get the top card of our deck of cards. And then we are not going to array add. Instead, we're going to set FSM array item. And so this could get complicated later on in the game, but for now, we're just going to see if this basic logic works. So we're going to specify to player 1. The FSM name is cardsInhand. The variable name is cardsInhand. And one thing I could do to make sure I don't mess this up is I could create a string variable. And I'm going to name this cardsInhand FSM. Actually, I'm just going to name it cardsInhand. And then I'm just going to call the cardsInhand FSM variable. I know it's long, string. I don't know. You can name whatever the heck you want. But the whole point is I'm just calling this cardsInhand so I don't accidentally mistype it. And look, I just mistyped it just now. That would have been the worst thing ever. There we go. CardsInhand. So now I can come in here and I can just say, you know what? I've named both of these. Why would I have to convert it? No, I have a string. FSM name is, cardsInhand FSM variable string. All right. That way, see how it says cardsInhand? That way I don't have to hand type it each time. I can just choose the variable, and I know I'm not going to jack it up. All right, so we are, for now, just going to set it at index 0. All right, and then we're going to delete this one. So now, if we're lucky, that top card should now be going to player 1's array. Now, so far, none of the other players are going to know what's in player 1's hand. That's fine. We don't need the other players to know. Whenever the player plays their card, that's when we let the other players know what they're holding. All right, so let's shuffle. Let's go to our deck. Okay, so we're looking, we've shuffled them, right? Deck of cards, spades, 12 of spades on the top. So if I deal, deal, all right, 12 of spades is gone. So hopefully we have added, I didn't tell it what to stinking add. My goodness. Okay. Back to the deck. Playmaker, dealing. We have to tell you what to add. So the type is going to be an object, and the object value is a card scriptable object, and the thing that you are adding is the top card. Now let's try. All right, clicky. Get back over here. There's my deck. I'm going to shuffle. Cards are shuffled. I'm going to deal. Cards have been dealt. We should be giving the 3 of clubs to the player. Let's go to the player. There's player 1. Let's go to the cardsInhand FSM. Let's go look at the array. Come on, baby. Nothing. Why? Did we get an error? We got 0 errors. What's your problem? I'm going to pause and dig into it. So, if I had remembered from an issue that we had in either part 1 or part 2, I would have realized my player is a network object. And we can't just change it whenever we feel like it because it's owned by somebody. And the deck is essentially owned by the room, and the player is owned by me. And I am telling the room to change something that I owned, and the room be all like, nah. So, for example, if we go into the deck, and we just did, if we set another FSM. So we're just going to create an empty game object to show how this works. Delete. We're just going to call this, game object. And so let's just add an FSM. Let's come over here. We're going to add an array. It's an array, and this is array. And actually, we're going to call this cards in hand. Okay, and we're going to call this FSM cards in hand so that we can illustrate this exactly. Okay, and then the array type is not an enum dagnabbit, it's an object. And then the type of object is a card scriptable object. And then if we come over here to the deck and we set FSM array item, let's just say it's on this game object. Everything else should be the same. So now let's see if that works. Because if it does, then that tells us the whole problem is because we don't own it. You don't own me. All right, so shuffle. Let's get back over here to the actual real thing. Okay, deal. There we go, it's dealt. Let's see if that worked. So let's go here to the deck, and let's go to this game object. Let's go to this variable. Let's look at cards in hand. It didn't work. So, must just be a broken FSM. So what we are going to do instead is something different, because I cannot trust that action anymore. I don't know where it just, maybe it just hates networked objects. Maybe it hates scriptable objects. I don't know why that when we tell the deck to, because it knows the scriptable object, and we want to set this game object's cards in the, just to see if there's something else wonky going on. I can come in here, we're gonna go to the deck, we're gonna go to Playmaker, we're gonna go to the dealing state, we're gonna come over here, and we're not gonna use these variables, and we know what it is, so this one, since it's all part of the same root, it knows what it is, index 0, type object, blah, 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 blah. Now, one other thing I thought was, it's empty, and so we might need to increment it first. Instead of set FSM array item, we might need add FSM array item. I bet that's not even an action. Add FSM. Yeah. So let's try this again. We're going to hit play. And there's the deck. We're gonna shuffle. We're gonna deal. Let's check this temporary game object. Let's go to the variables. Cards in hand. Yeah. Didn't work. Size is 0. And that's probably the problem. Oh, geez. So what if... I don't know why I wasn't getting a console error. Did anybody see a console error? What if we come in here and we know our hand can be 7? Okay. We know our hand can be 7. And let's say no bigger than 7. So now if we run it and we go shuffle and we deal and we deal. Did we deal? Did it do it? We dealt it. Come over here, game object, look at the cards in hand. Boom! That was the issue. Okay, so. Arrays just get mad if they don't have slots to put something in. So we don't need this guy anymore. All right, so that's how we figure out why our logics aren't working. We're going to come back over here, and we're going to do it to our player 1, and those are the correct FSM names, but I just want to get back to this variable string because we're going to be using this for all of our players. All right, so now let's see if it works going from a room-owned object to a player-owned object. Shuffle, deal, make sure it actually dealt. It did. Go to the player, go to cards in hand. What did I do wrong? I shouldn't even click. I already know I did something wrong because I didn't give it a size. Go back to project. Go back to card player. Card player? Card player. Card player? Playmaker. Cards in hand. Cards in hand. You can be up to 7 and no more. All right, play. Shuffle. Deal. Player. Go to the cards in hand FSM. Yes! Oh! There it is. Okay, super long to do something so tiny. We've barely done anything. But the reason I'm keeping these videos long is I want you to see how it's one thing to just follow a tutorial step by step. It's easy to copy and paste something. I teach this in my other job where I teach call center stuff. People can easily do exactly what I tell them to do, but the problem is they never really learn how the thought process works. And I want you to be able, when you run into an issue, see how to go back and figure out why that piece of logic isn't working, and how you try other avenues to see where it does work to help guide you to what you need to change to make it do work. So we definitely saw that in this video. So we're gonna stop this here. We're at 35 minutes. And so what we're gonna do next time is we're gonna go back into the deck and the dealing, and we want to deal to all the players in the room. This is gonna be the world's longest series ever. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment below if you think that these are too long. I need to edit them more. Or if you like this. Catch you later.